I'm Daniel Sieberg. I'm the author of The Digital Diet, which is a book about consuming technology in a healthy way, especially as we've come so far so fast and we're surrounded by it every day. Thinking about it almost like you do with food, being mindful of the choices that you make and maybe not indulging or getting too overwhelmed in the midst of it. I also work at Google. I'm the head of our media outreach team there, and I wear a number of different hats, but generally I work to empower the media to use digital tools like Google Maps, Google+, YouTube. Prior to that, about a couple of years ago, I worked as a technology reporter and correspondent for the likes of CBS, ABC, CNN. My years covering technology goes back to the mid-90s, and my love of technology goes back even before that.
Okay, great. I mean, you've mentioned it a bit there, but can you tell us a bit more about your book, then, The Digital Diet, and what we can learn from it?
Sure, so the book actually grew out of my own need to kind of manage my technology better, especially as and I know a lot of other people were adopting mobile devices, the ubiquity of Wi-Fi. My relationships were suffering sometimes because I spent too much time looking at the screen and not enough time looking at people's faces. And so the book was really driven by my own sort of pursuit of understanding this better, and it turns out there's a lot of research in this area, whether it has to do with how the next generation or children are developing and then sort of processing all of this, and how their brains are shifting a little bit, how we all try to multitask and maybe we're not as good as we think we are with some of this sort of information overload, and how we want to be sort of more efficient and productive with all of this, and that's really the message of the book. It's a positive idea, again, much to the sort of food analogy. With a recipe book, hopefully you like to eat the food and you're a foodie and you want to consume it. Same with technology. I love technology. I just want to see people do it in a way that's not unconditional of their love for technology.
Definitely, and I mean, obviously here at the event we're almost looking at it from the other side as the people who supply this technology,
Sure.
As I'm sure you do a bit in your job as well.
Yep.
So as an expert in user consumption, for you, what do you think are going to be the next big trends in the communications technology specifically?
Yeah, it seems as though the sort of next big thing, in a sense, is almost a little thing, and that is that the technology is sort of shrinking and sort of seamlessly becoming part of our lives, which is really wonderful and exciting. Whether it's helping us to make better decisions when we're buying something and we're out in a store and we can actually use the camera to get a price or compare the reviews of something. We can use maps as we're on the go. It's almost unthinkable that you wouldn't be able to have a navigation device with you wherever you go. So there's a lot of ways that it's kind of becoming almost part of your life that you don't have to think about it. And I think that's really fascinating. At the same time, I don't want us to lose our awareness of the technology in our lives and forget too much about the humanity part as well. So there's this kind of intersection of all of that happening right now, which I think is really interesting and really not necessarily neither negative or positive, but a growing area of interest.
Great, and I mean, obviously you've been moderating our CEO panel today, so can you give us a few takeaways that you've taken from that?
Yeah, I was struck by how candid and sort of forthcoming the CXOs were during the panel. I felt like they really offered some great nuggets of information. They almost took off much as I'm sort of taking off my Google hat in some ways, they're almost taking off their C-suite hat and spoke very frankly about some of the challenges and opportunities for them. And I thought that the audience really gravitated to that, to have that access to that level of management, which you don't often get to see, and that they were that, frankly, honest about what they're trying to do and what they're trying to accomplish. MENA is a rapidly growing market when it comes to mobile devices, and as we heard from some of the C-suite folks today, that some consumers are skipping over the kind of traditional way to get into this stuff. Maybe they're not using email as much, they're going right into texting, or they're going right into social media. There are different ways that people in different parts of the world see it a value to their own lives. And certainly there's a lot of growth opportunity here. I mean, the event, I think, has been a real eye-opener for me because you get to see a lot of these different regional companies and outfits come together in the same space. I've traveled here a little bit, but I think that it's for anybody who's either even familiar with the region, but for someone like me who's new, relatively new, you get kind of this insight into, all right, who are the players here, what's happening, what are the kind of, what's the roadmap here to the future, and I'm thrilled to have, sort of had a front row seat to all of this.